Canada is furious at the United States, as they should be, but frankly, Canada's moved on. Canada recognizes that the United States, sadly, is no longer an ally under the Trump regime, and Canada has forged partnerships with the European Union and the rest of the world, saying goodbye to the United States. The boycott is stronger than ever. The travel boycott is stronger than ever. And here Donald Trump yesterday sends another letter to Canada defaming the great nation of Canada and saying that he's imposing 35% tariffs against Canada until you Canadians stop bringing in the fentanyl and killing the Americans, which is absolutely not happening. Donald Trump is a deranged, lunatic, felon, wannabe dictator who's destroying the United States. I've had Canadian friends who describe America right now as the meth lab that's below it, a meth lab that's blowing up. It's a powder keg meth lab right now. I'll just show you briefly Donald Trump's letter that he sent to Canada. I don't want to read the whole thing. It'll make us all far less smart. And then I want to show you some stats about Canada that you may find interesting, how Canadians are super furious at the United States. Donald Trump writes this letter to Prime Minister Carney and says, "It's a great honor for me to send you this." And then Donald Trump goes on to say that, but Canada has financially retaliated against the United States. Then Donald Trump goes on to say that we had to tariff Canada to deal with the nation's fentanyl crisis, which is caused in part by Canada's failure to stop drugs from pouring into our country. Trump is clearly being defamatory. They're no different than what Putin says about denazifying Ukraine, because Donald Trump thinks like Putin. I mean, having the United States south of your border is like having Russia be on your border in Ukraine. That's it. That's how you have to think about it. Donald Trump's language about annexing Canada is just like Putin's annexation language, even if Donald Trump is a taco. Then Donald Trump goes on to say that he's imposing the 35% tariffs, but he will remove the tariffs as soon as the fentanyl stops pouring in. And then, as we wrote on the MeidasTouch network, not this idiocy again. Only 43 pounds of fentanyl, 43 pounds were intercepted at the U.S.-Canada border in 2024. And it's far more dangerous what the United States is sending to Canada than the opposite way. As I said, Canada's moving on. I mean, Prime Minister Carney posted, "In the face of global trade challenges, the world is turning to reliable economic partners like Canada. New UK trade strategy IDs Canada as key partner to boost economy and procurement opportunities." Prime Minister Carney's approval, by the way, is about 61% or so, whereas Donald Trump's approval is in the 30s or low 40s here, depending on what poll. As Tara Hoops points out, Canada is one of our top trading partners. We just had an election focused on affordability. Raising import taxes now will only increase our cost of living, worsen the housing crisis, and drive inflation. It's a self-defeating move that undermines our own economic priorities. Whether you're looking at crude petroleum, vehicles and oil parts, minerals, natural gas, wood and lumber products, Canada is our biggest trading partner in the United States, but that doesn't matter to Donald Trump at all. As I mentioned at the outset, the Canadian boycott is going strong. This one Forbes article talks about how Canadian visitors to U.S. plummet 33% in June, the sixth straight month of steep declines. Last month saw 1/3 fewer Canadians visiting the U.S. by car compared to June 2024, as Canada propels international tourism declines to an expected overall economic loss of $29 billion in 2025. Canada strong with the boycott by Canada. Here it says the volume of Canadians taking road trips into the U.S., the means by which most Canadians visit, dropped by 33% last month compared to June 2024, according to new data from Statistics Canada, following a 38% drop in May. I have a feeling that in July and August, that number is going to look closer to 45%. I honestly believe it's closer to 50% right now, but that's just me anecdotally. There was also a 22% decline in air travelers from Canada year over year. June was the sixth consecutive month of steep declines in inbound Canadian travel, including double-digit year-over-year drops in car travel and air travel to the U.S. every month since April. Do y'all remember when I was covering some of this stuff back in February and people were saying, if it's just like 10% or 8%, the damage could be catastrophic to U.S. tourism? Well, it's now in the 30s to 40% range. And so you may be saying, but why is that data reflected in the U.S. economy? It is actually when you see 33,000 private sector job losses in the ADP private payroll data. But as I mentioned, Donald Trump's being funny, manipulating the job numbers as he controls the Commerce and Labor Department, and Donald Trump's fired all the career civil servants. So Trump claims miraculously, even though there was a 33,000 drop in private sector jobs, according to the ADP payroll, that there was 147,000 jobs created, spurred by new teacher jobs and government jobs created as Donald Trump's Doge is destroying our government. And it goes on to talk about how disastrous this is going to harm our country here in the United States. Also, this is really sending Las Vegas into a recession right now with, if you've seen all of these hotels. I know lots of Canadians would love to visit Las Vegas here and then. You've canceled your trips to Vegas, and all of these hotels are trying to offer all of these discounts. Please, please, please come to, but people ain't doing it. Okay. People ain't doing it right now because Donald Trump's essentially declaring war on Canada, not just a trade war, a war over Canadian sovereignty. I'll remind you all that I had Charlie Angus on the show recently, and here's what Charlie Angus had to say about Donald Trump and people in the regime trying to claim that Canada is some sort of terrorist safe haven. Here, play this clip.
Well, this is so true. I mean, he came to the G7, a moment when world leaders came together to try and sort of put some stability in a destabilized world. Instead, we got Donald Trump, who blew the whole thing up and then scrammed out of Canada before he had to confront President Zelensky. Then he went to NATO in Brussels. Again, another key point where the European allies were trying to secure with the world some level of stability with the increasing violence we are seeing in Israel, Gaza, Iran, the situation with Russia. And Donald Trump came in and lit gasoline all over the place and then walked out. So in those, what you saw in between those two pivotal international summits was that Canada said, well, wait a minute, we've got to find a future. And it's not with this guy, and it's not with the United States. We have American officials hosting meetings claiming that Canada is some kind of terrorist haven. They're saying that we're sending massive gangs of El Salvadorians over the Canadian border. I mean, I'm sorry. You've ever visited Canada? Could you show us where we have our El Salvadorian gangs? I mean, I think what next? They're going to find weapons of mass destruction in a bunker in some nice leafy suburb in Canada. The language that Trump is using against Canada is actually having a hugely detrimental effect on American businesses because Canadians are pulling out. Canadians are not traveling there. So I don't know what Prime Minister Carney will do in response to this latest temper tantrum by President Taco. Certainly, when we see that he's throwing around issues like non-existent threats like dairy, it's more of his bad theater, but we've seen the show so many times. We know the punchlines. It's not funny. Nobody gets upset. So I think Canada's just going to have to do what it's going to do. We'll probably have to go back pound for pound, dollar for dollar in trade retaliations as we watch the American economy get weaker and more unsure, because who is going to invest right now? Who's going to start moving product for the American economy when Donald Trump is blowing things up every chance he can get?
And here, Charlie Angus, when I spoke to him a few days ago, he's saying, look, Canada needs to prepare drones and weapons of war and build up its military, which, by the way, it's doing, to protect against an American invasion. Charlie Angus, leader of the resistance in Canada, very popular out there, became a good friend of mine. He and I have a big announcement about Maple Midas in Canada that I'm excited to be making super soon. You're going to love our expansion into Canada, so you'll wait for the announcement. It's coming soon. But here he says, look, Canadians and the Canadian government should prepare the way Ukraine prepared for war against Russia's invasion. He says, we should take Trump literally. Here, play this clip.
This is a very, very sick and dark exhibition. So when we look at this as the people that we're negotiating with, Canadians need to be really ready. We are upping our investment in military spending significantly. We are now procuring from the Europeans, whereas before we would have just gone to the United States as per usual and buy gear. We're not buying gear from the United States. I don't know what the Prime Minister's thinking, but if I was him, I'd be inviting over Ukrainians to start setting up factories so that we can set up those $100 drones, because it's our border, it's our waterways, our lakes, and our harbors that are now seriously under threat because we don't know where Trump is going to go. I know in the media in Canada, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to act like they're being hysterical. But when you're seeing a president of the United States setting up concentration camps and bragging about people being eaten by alligators, people whose only crime is they got picked up by ICE, then the idea that we can trust them at our border is simply not on. We have to start getting ourselves ready for what could be the next part of the playbook.
And here he says Canada can no longer view the United States as an ally in a great speech that he gave. Here, play this clip.
Canada can no longer view the United States as an ally. We know that Donald Trump doesn't believe in liberal democracy. He doesn't believe in the rule of law. Canada is an open and inclusive society. Little wonder that Donald Trump has denounced our nation as one of the nastiest countries he's ever had to deal with. And we'd be fools to pretend that his threat to, quote, get rid of the border by using economic force has somehow abated. We can't kid ourselves about the threat that's being posed by Donald Trump. Prime Minister Mark Carney is not inviting our nearest neighbor and friendly ally to join us in the G7. Prime Minister Carney is not inviting the leader of the free world to Canada. He is welcoming in Vladimir Putin's sock puppet.
Well, there you have it, folks. Canada has a right to be furious, and we appreciate all of the Maple Midas. We're the largest podcast in Canada. We stand in solidarity with you here at the MeidasTouch Network against the Trump regime. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for watching.
New Midas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.meidastouch.com.